starts right now. Howie Mandel on how one of the most famous germaphobes in show business is handling the pandemic, and if he's spoken to his fellow America's Got Talent judge, Heidi Klum, since she took the coronavirus test. Plus,
residents and employees, I was informed that I have tested positive for COVID-19.
Miami Mayor Francis Suarez is talking to the ladies from his self-quarantine about handling life with the coronavirus, when he started feeling symptoms, and his message for spring breakers still hitting the beach. And Sarah Haynes is back to guest co-host. Hot topics are on the table. With Whoopi, Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, and Meghan McCain. Now, let's get things started.
Welcome to The View. Sarah is back at the table. Megan is still here. Joy is self-isolating. And Whoopi, our moderator, is from home. How's it going, Whoopi?
It's still going very, very well. It is nice to hear you all each morning. I have to tell you, it makes me feel like I have some kind of normalcy in my life.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are watching us for the same reason, because they want to see us, but it also makes them feel like life is moving forward. So I want to thank you all for making my life better.
Oh, thanks, Whoopi.
Thank you, Whoopi.
Let's rock some, well, just y'all are all right. You know, I love you. So we're going to start with some hot topics. And you're not going to hear that a lot from me, but I'm telling you today.
No, it's like, say it one more time, Whoopi.
You know, I do. I love you all. I love you all, and I'm so glad that we're doing this together, because we're helping a lot of people cope, and that is, you know, that has nothing to do with what our political beliefs are. That has nothing to do with our color. It has to do with us as a body of women saying, we got you, and we're going to keep our eye moving forward, and we're taking you with us.
Absolutely.
So that's what we're doing. In any case, you know who has been changing his narrative on the coronavirus from the beginning. But in a press conference yesterday, he admitted the severity of it. Take a look.
But now the whole world almost is inflicted with this horrible virus, and it's too bad. It's too bad, because we never had an economy as good as the economy we had just a few weeks ago. So there's never been anything like this in history. There's never been. Nobody's ever seen anything like this. But we're doing the right thing. We have to get rid of, I mean, our big war is it's not a financial war. It's a war, and it's a medical war. We have to win this war. It's very important.
So, you know, it's good that he's finally saying, you know, and acting the way we would have expected several weeks ago, you know, and people are saying, well, it's a while to November. Let's see what's going on. Because when you change the narrative, you know, as he has many times, it makes people uncomfortable. Are y'all comfortable with this new narrative? Is he being more, I don't know, present with what's going on?
I tend to think that, again, anything going on right now, I'm not really locking into politicians, although we need them for a lot of the kind of the policies and things that we're going to do to handle the situation. I'm finding more comfort, again, in doctors and scientists, and I want reasonable, calm facts and information. Right now, I kind of felt really unified by Biden when he talked the other day. I wanted a little bit of hope, too, after something like 9/11, when kind of New York City specifically all came together. I'm looking for voices that are calming me down, but informing me, giving me facts, updating me as we go, and reminding us that we've gotten through so many things in the past, and we'll get through this one if we stick in it together. So I'm looking for messages of hope filled with information and fact.
Well, I see that he's trying to change the narrative. You know, he's calling it a war. I think he really enjoys these war analogies, even though he never served, and even though he's this notorious draft dodger, he seems to want that sort of title, that glory. I'm uncomfortable with that analogy coming from this particular president because I don't think he has wartime experience. But I agree with you, Sarah. I think that, you know, this needs to be led by physicians. It needs to be led by medical experts, people with, that kind of expertise. I think his response and the response from the administration was woefully inadequate. You had someone like Jared Kushner with no medical expertise sort of leading the charge, assigned with leading the charge. Mike Pence, who had a miserable history in Indiana, being assigned to lead the charge. With Mike Pence with Indiana and the AIDS epidemic. And so for me, this flip-flopping and this mixed message that we heard from the administration was woefully inadequate and very, very late. And I think that the reason we're so behind in testing, the reason that we're so behind dealing with this pandemic is because this administration did not do the right thing.
I mean, it's hard to take politics out of it. I understand the emotional craving to do that because it's such a scary time. You want to believe that everyone's on the same page. I think the point that Sonny's making is in politics, no matter what, you always have to think that a crisis will happen in any administration or any state in one way or another. The likelihood of some kind of crisis happening while you're serving in office is great because crises happen. And the problem with the Trump administration right now is they use so much political capital in the beginning in the wrong way that now distrust has already been bred with a lot of Americans and with a lot of people within the administration. And I think if you're President Trump sort of still being combative with the press in a way that he did yesterday, he said, oh, you're all behaving right now. It took a pandemic to do so. It's just ridiculous and a waste of time. And I think what's interesting to me, your point about Jared and Ivanka, I've been upset about their roles in this because they put on hats when they want it. When you're a White House advisor and you want to create policy, you got that hat on. When you want to be a mom at home talking about how to entertain your kids, you got that hat at home. And I get, like, moms can do everything. I get it. It's not that she can't talk about being a mom at the same time, but I haven't heard anything. The three of us are raging about masks and ventilators. And by the way, this, you know what I was thinking about? This is her hometown. This is Ivanka's hometown. If this were happening in Phoenix, I'm sorry, you guys, I love this show, but I would probably be at home in Phoenix raging about it because it's my hometown.
And mom's living paycheck to paycheck, and mom's being at home.
So it's just incredibly tone deaf to me. If you are Jared or Ivanka right now, I am enraged in a way that I haven't felt in a very long time about anything. So it's just sort of strange to me that when they want to be policy advisors, they're policy advisors when it's easy and convenient. But when crap's really going down and there's a huge crisis, you want to put beautiful Instagram photos up. And I, for one, I'm not interested in it.
And let's not forget that this president said not too long ago this was a Democratic hoax. That the Democrats, that coronavirus was
I mean, not literally, but that verbiage is going to be running attack ads.
Is this a hoax? Is this a hoax?
No,
like
I think
people
that's
dying
why
from
I'm
a
also
hoax?
honing in on science and doctors, because right now you can't remove the politics from it. And every time I turn on the TV, you have to question what was motivation, what was strategy, what was words matter, what the language is. That's why the only people I trust right now are the ones with facts and information that is not politicized, and that is the scientists.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
And I respect that because I think it's a highly evolved viewpoint to say I'm going to listen to doctors and scientists. Unfortunately, I worked in conservative media. My husband works in conservative media for my entire life. There are a lot of people that are only listening to Fox News on this and are only listening to the president. And I saw the tone in this country start to change. Again, we were raging about this for a long time. The tone started changing when Fox started changing. And so that, to me, is what's concerning for older people, where we have a harder time convincing them to take this more seriously. And I think there's actual videos on YouTube that you can look up right now if you want to see it. And it shows the metamorphosis between.
And I wish we had that. I wish we had that, because it is unbelievable when you saw some of the anchors on Fox News calling it a hoax, calling it all this stuff, and then there was this change.
People like Brett Baer and Harris Faulkner have been. I had lunch with her right before this broke. And I don't think she'd mind me saying this. She said it's incredibly serious and to take it seriously.
But others, you saw Sean Hannity.
But people have to use their heads right now. Don't look to politicians or just what you're seeing on the one channel you choose to watch. Read in on your own. This is, there are lives at stake.
Lives at stake.
I agree with you. I just think think there are unfortunately a bunch of people in this country who have such a distrust of our media and our institutions that they only choose to listen to one network or another, and I think it has done a real disservice.
And they listened to the president who called it a hoax, and their lives were at stake. Well,
but the interesting thing about all of this is whatever channel you're watching, you're still watching from home. You're watching from inside your house because a pandemic has happened and you are stuck. And whatever side you're on, you understand that when you have leadership, you would not be stuck in your house. Sorry, Sonny, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, Whoopi, we'll be right back.
Still ahead, Howie Mandel on how his germophobia is coming in handy during the pandemic. And Miami Mayor Francis Suarez on how it feels to contract the coronavirus and if he's starting to feel any better.
Welcome back. Here's that Washington Post mashup of the gang from his favorite network we were talking about. Take a look.
This is yet another attempt to impeach the president. And sadly, it seems they care very little for any of the destruction they are leaving in their wake. We must test for the virus in order to stop the spread of it. What could be a very great recession. Some predicting even a depression.
We're going to call out anyone and everyone who's using this virus as a political weapon against the president. The standard flu every single year kills tens of thousands of Americans. We are now entering what will be the crucial defining 15-day period as it relates to this virus, where we must slow the spread of coronavirus.
It's actually the safest time to fly. Everyone I know that's flying right now, terminals are pretty much dead. We have a responsibility to slow down this virus and to think of other people during this time. And so if you can keep your distance and prevent someone from getting close to you that might be sick, you could save your family, you can save the elderly, and help our country as a nation.
So what are Fox viewers supposed to make of all of this pivot?
Well, I think this back and forth is why I feel everyone should be checking multiple sources when they're talking about anything going on in the world. There was a time where even in a high school paper, you had to have 2 or 3, sources. I think right now people are locking into their corners and only consuming certain parts, which is why I, again, am finding so much comfort in looking at doctors right now. This is a medical problem. It's a pandemic. Doctors are the place to go right now.
Well, but we saw those mixed messages coming directly from the top. We saw those mixed messages coming from the president, and I think that Fox News, as we know, has sort of been the mouthpiece of the administration. We saw a tone change from the administration, and Fox News, I think, followed suit. So what should the Fox viewer, and we know, if you look at the stats, the Fox viewer really turns on Fox News in the morning and keeps it on.
They statistically keep it on for 8 hours a day.
They keep it on for 8 hours a day. Those are the stats. And so, I think that, with the president always saying fake news, fake news, fake news, and his supporters believing it, and Fox viewers believing it, they now are in they should be at least, in a really strange place. They now should be in a really strange place. What do they believe? They should be where you are, Sarah. They should believe a Dr. Fauci. They should believe the medical experts.
Dr. Ashton, Dr. Oz,
but will they? But will they?
One of the interesting revelations to come out of this is that it was actually Tucker Carlson that convinced the President Trump to start believing in the realities of the coronavirus.
Is that right?
Yep, there are reports that Tucker Carlson actually drove from his house in Florida to Mar-a-Lago to convince President Trump, and he was one of the people, and this is sourced multiple places, and he was actually one of the people that ended up changing the president's mind.
See, that doesn't give me comfort, because he should be listening to Fauci.
Can I finish my thought as the Fox employee, ex-employee, and it is important at this point, again, it's the #1 most powerful cable news program they lap every other network by a lot. So instead of sitting here and judging viewers for over a period of time, we can have this conversation when I think it's more appropriate why they distrust so much of the mainstream media. I think instead we should implore the executives at Fox News, if God forbid anything ever like this happens again, to put more doctors on air with some of these pundits who are, I'm not a doctor. I'm not saying I'm a doctor. I never have, but putting in place medical professionals who know what they're talking about. And I think that was part of the problem. But you get so hunkered down in places, I think even as me, just like the only conservative in the entire world left on mainstream media, at least that's how it feels most of the time, you hunker down and you get tribal and you're like, oh, but it's got to be an attack against the president. It's got to be an attack against Republicans. But the problem is when you're dealing with a pandemic, and by the way, we had it happen on this show as well. not with me, but we had it happen on the show as well, lest we forget. So a Republican saying that it was, you know, that we should wash our hands and pray it away. So it wasn't just on Fox News that it was happening. It happened right here in The View.
See, and again, it gives me no comfort that the president, as opposed to listening to Dr. Fauci, who I think has been raising the alarm not only with the president but also in front of Congress. He has the woman who led the team during the AIDS, I think it's Birx, who led the team during the AIDS epidemic. He has real professionals, doctors surrounding him. Rather than listen to his team, he's listening to Tucker Carlson. No shade to Tucker Carlson, but come on, that gives me no comfort.
He's been very responsible in his coverage since the beginning, though. I will say, I think he deserves some credit.
But does that really surprise you, Sonny?
It doesn't surprise me, but it gives me no comfort.
You also have to remember that everyone is watching Fox News from home.
Yep.
So whatever they think, whatever politics there is, the reality is everybody's in it.
Yeah.
Yep.
It doesn't matter, you know, who figures who. We're living it. Fox News people, ABC News, wherever we are all living this together, and that's the great equalizer. It doesn't care about your politics. The coronavirus will mess you up.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well said, Whoopi. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Miami Mayor Francis Suarez says he learned social distancing is vital since he contracted the coronavirus. So was it a dangerous mistake to keep polls open for the Florida primaries? He's joining Hot Topics next.
For the past week, Miami Mayor Francis Suarez has been in self-quarantine after finding out that he's one of the growing number of people who have contracted the coronavirus. And he's joining us from Miami right now. Hello, Mr. Mayor.
How you doing, Whoopi? It's a pleasure and an honor to be with you all this morning.
Well, we're honored to have you. Listen, how are you feeling? You were diagnosed about a week ago with coronavirus. Were you surprised to discover that you now were one of the people that had it?
I was very surprised. I was probably one of the first, if not the first, elected official from any government that had contracted it, and it was a shock to me. Obviously, when I got the news, it was something that was very unexpected, and so it's been a whirlwind last few days dealing with it. But thankfully, I've been relatively symptom-free, just a mild, cold, no fever, and so I've been very blessed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're glad. And right now, so you feel like you're on the mend. And we need to let people know that this is what happens with a lot of people. They get it, and their symptoms may be a little more heavy or a little more light, but most people come out of it.
And that's exactly what I've been doing. I've done a daily blog to chronicle every single day on my Twitter account and my Instagram account, to try to demystify things, to reduce the anxiety level. I think people are very anxious about, getting tested. Where should they get tested? Are there enough test kits? And I want people to understand that if by some reason they get infected, and I suspect, by the way, there are many more people infected than we probably know, that this is not something that you should panic about. Obviously, you should take care of yourself. I've been taking care of myself. I've remained in quarantine the entire time. But thankfully, I fall in that category of people that have experienced so far mild symptoms.
Mayor Suarez, this is Meghan McCain. You were exposed at an event that was attended by a Brazilian official who later tested positive for the virus. Senator Rick Scott and President Trump were there as well. Senator Scott has self-quarantined, although he does not have the virus, and the president was tested and found to be negative. Do you know how you think you possibly contracted the virus?
Yeah, there was a delegation led by the Brazilian president that was in Miami Monday and Tuesday. I had to obviously say hello to them and greet them. And I was in a room with this person who had tested positive for at least an hour on Monday, potentially an hour on Tuesday. It's very possible that we shook hands. It's also very possible that we had a close conversation. Someone sent me a picture that we're in the same picture, and we're a few feet away. So once that all happened, it was clear and it was evident that I had to quarantine immediately. The Department of Health, the Florida Department of Health, called me, asked me to come in and get tested. I got tested right away, and I was shocked to learn the next day that I was positive. Obviously there was a lot of fear and anxiety and, concern about what this would mean for me. But thankfully, so far, almost a week in, it's meant, that I've had some cold-like symptoms, not quite flu-like symptoms, and I've been living with it, and that's why I've been blogging so that people can feel a little bit, reduce the anxiety level and feel a little bit less concerned.
Mm-hmm. Well, we also keep seeing videos of spring breakers all over Florida beaches. Very disconcerting for a lot of people. They're ignoring recommendations and gathering at large groups. Based on your personal experience, how important is it for people to implement social distancing right now? And what do you think is not getting through to young people on spring break that may continue to want to go out?
Well, it's crucial. We were the city that first canceled a large music festival called Ultra. We canceled another large festival of 250,000 people. That music festival, the people would have been landing in the next couple of weeks, and they were coming from 105 different countries. When we did that, we were the first city, probably the U.S., to start canceling major events. We actually were criticized by some in our community for acting, some said prematurely, and others went out and said, we're open for business. And now unfortunately, the people have come to Miami, and what people don't understand is, as mayor, I don't have the authority to close the beaches, but thankfully our county yesterday finally closed the beaches, and so my advice to spring breakers is to respect social distancing. If you can go back home, it probably is worth going back home because none of the businesses in Miami are open right now, and so there's not going to be any opportunity to party or to congregate. And so my recommendation for them is to take this seriously, not just for them and for their health, although we're seeing more and more young people very, very seriously affected by this, but also for their grandparents and for those who they may come into contact with and may not have major symptoms that they could gravely hurt. Besides, we have to focus on our first responders and our hospital systems that we know over the next few days are going to be overwhelmed. And so the responsible thing to do is to stay home, to respect social distancing. We've got to take this seriously so we can get ahead of this.
Mayor, this is Sunny Hostin. You are under quarantine, but you're still working. Are you considering more of a lockdown scenario like San Francisco has done?
We are, and I actually spoke to the mayor of San Francisco. She's a friend, and we are considering that. In fact, that may already be in place by the time that the day is over. But we are certainly looking at that. The county has recently implemented essentially a shutdown of all businesses except for non-essential businesses. So what we're looking at is a shelter-in-place order similar to what San Francisco has, which is basically if you're not going to do something essential, if you're going to the supermarket, if you're going to get medicine, we understand those are essential things that you have to do. But other than that, you really should be staying home. And if you have to go out, you absolutely should respect social distancing.
Hi, Mayor Suarez. This is Sarah. We're all trying to practice social distancing right now, which has been pretty difficult. You and your wife have 2 young children, and they've all tested negative, and you're currently isolated from them. But what's it like to have been away from your family right now?
Oh, it's been awful. It's been really tough. I mean, my daughter is not even 2 years old, and my son is 6. So not being able to hold them, not being able to hug them has been extremely difficult. My wife, thankfully, has come by a few times from far away, and I have windows on the outside and sort of waved at me. But it's been extremely difficult for her. A tremendous amount of anxiety, because you can imagine the minute I tested positive, it wasn't just about me. It's about all the people in my government that I come into contact with. It's even people that in her school, our children come into contact with. It's people in her civic activities that she comes into contact with. So the number of text messages, the number of calls, the anxiety that this created for our city, unfortunately, was tremendous. And so she's been extremely supportive. And frankly, without her support and without my children's support, it would be much more difficult for me.
Absolutely. Well, we hope you feel better soon.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck to you. Yes. Stay safe, stay healthy. Our thanks to Miami Mayor Francis Suarez. We'll be right back.
Is self-quarantined in California, and he's joining us next.
Americans who are more prepared for defending themselves against the coronavirus than our next guest. When I tell you nobody's more prepared than this guy, nobody. Most outspoken germaphobe in show business, the fabulous Howie Mandel joins us now from a hot tub full of Purell in L.A. Hey, Howie.
Hello.
It's good to be here. And I mean that. It's good to be here, not there.
Hi, Howie. It's Megan. First of all, you're very famous and well known for knowing that you're a self-professed germaphobe. I can't imagine being a germaphobe during this moment in time. So we just want to ask first and foremost, how are you doing, and how have you been spending your days at home in isolation?
Well, I am at home in isolation. I'm fine. I'm fine. I live in a pre-pandemic state, and now this is like a nightmare coming true for me. Oh. But I hope that that people kind of take what is happening now and kind of apply it to the rest of their life. I believe that we'll get through this. I believe that the right people and the medical community is in charge, and we can control this. But I would hope that, all the things that are coming out of this remain past this, and that is empathy for others and helping others. And listen to me, there's no reason to ever shake hands. There is no reason to ever bump a fist. There really isn't. That's why we have cold and flu season when we don't have the COVID-19, is because we have this terrible habit of wanting to touch every stranger and everything. And I hope we are more aware of touching our face. So some of the rules that are being applied to this should remain in place even for regular life when people get back to regular living.
This is Sunny, Howie. I completely agree with you. You've been on to something for a long time. And 4 days ago, you and your wife celebrated 40 years of marriage. Yeah. 40 years.
Right.
Incredible.
Well, and she told me after 3. Well, thank you. Please sit down. And after 3 days of quarantine, she said, we are not going to make it to 41.
So, well, how did you celebrate, though?
This is it. You're looking at my celebration. It's still going on and on. We didn't go anywhere. She doesn't want to touch me because I'm still awaiting the answers from Heidi Klum, is now sitting beside me on AGT, is being so responsible and went home not feeling well. I don't think she has it. Her husband got his test results back, and it came back negative. She has not gotten her results yet, so until Heidi gets her results, my wife won't go near me. Nobody's going near me, which is okay with me at this point.
Well, Howie, everyone is finally learning to take your lead by fist bumping and elbow bumping instead of shaking hands.
No more fist bumping. There's no reason to touch somebody.
To arm bump.
Unless you're dating.
I got it.
Or celebrating 40 years.
Celebrating 40 years. But your daughter actually tweeted, quote, "My dad went from being considered crazy to being the smartest man on earth." Do you feel like a sense of vindication right now? Because everything you've been saying and preaching for a lot of your career, now doctors are doing.
Well, no, there's no sense of vindication, just hope and good thoughts going out. I'm not vindicated, and there's no "I told you so" here. I believe that a pandemic has been something that has been talked about for decades and decades, and the way we live in these close quarters, and the way we take antibiotics. I think that the viruses are always changing every year. The flu is different and killing hundreds of thousands of people. So I don't feel vindicated as much as I feel that maybe my way of living has. I don't feel as uncomfortable as most in this new world. This is my world. I am really medicated through my therapist and psychiatrist, so I'm able to cope.
Howie, this is Sarah. Now, you've been seen walking around in a full hazmat suit, and if anyone owned one of those and just kept it chilling in the closet, it'd be you. Was this something that you already had just laying around?
Yeah. Why, is that a bad thing? I I used that throughout the years, raising the children when they had a little cough or something. That's if I wasn't moving into another guest house or another room, I wore that so that I could care for them and be in the same room. So I have masks and gloves and hazmat suits, and I'm not proud of it, but I have it.
You're kind of the richest man in the world right now, though, with all those hazmat suits and stuff. That's what...
No, I just have one.
Oh, okay.
Do you have toilet paper?
Yeah.
That's what I want to know. You have toilet paper you can share?
Well, the beauty of what I have, and I did also this years ago, I have toilet paper, but I have one of those Toto toilets, you know, where you don't need, well, I have an American Standard toilet now. That I replaced my Toto with an American Standard, but it's that self-washing, self-drying,
like a bidet,
paperless, hands-free kind of.
Whoopi loves those.
Anything.
Yes, Whoopi has those as well.
Oh yeah.
No, I think we got to recommend that.
I do love them.
No reason to touch anything, even yourself.
Howie, you've had to postpone all of your upcoming stand-up shows, and you've said in the past that the stage is actually your security blanket, and it's in fact the only place where you really feel comfortable. What do you think makes the stage so comfortable for you?
Because that's the only place that I live in the moment. You know, the thing that will get us through all this and gets me through day by day is distraction. And anytime I could stop or I have time to think, that's not really good to be inside my own head. So when somebody goes, ladies and gentlemen, Howie Mandel, and I'm standing in front of an audience without much of a plan, and it's happening in real time, the last thing I think about is all the darkness that goes on inside my own head. So that keeps me in the moment. And that's what I do for free. I always say to people, you know, I do comedy, stand-up comedy for free. What you're paying for is to have me leave my house, get on a plane, stay in a hotel. But once I'm on the stage, that's for free. So this is, you know, I'm actually comfortable being in my own home and not being able to leave.
Well, thank you, Howie.
We're sending distant kisses your way.
We are. We're sending love and socially distant kisses right to you.
And I'm looking into that toilet.
I love social distancing.
We'll be right back.
Capturing all of our best moments on Instagram. Follow us at The View ABC if you're looking for a really sweet view.